Today I was thinking that maybe, just maybe, I would make it out of a rock alive. Clouds of silt dust plumed around my boots, and I was smiling. Off in the distance to the west there was an explosion. Nothing new. Explosions and gunfire were like sirens and traffic noises in the world. Something that is always there, but you only half listen to. I thought it was another IED going off in another sector. As I neared the rust-colored Konex box, I heard an incoming round. Now, you don't really hear mortars as they fly in, invisible and deadly. You hear the thunk as they leave the tube. But after that, it's a guessing game. It's going to hit 100 meters away or land on you. This was different. Well, I heard that sound and screamed incoming as I dove for the dirt. And for a second, frozen in time, I saw the round as it streaked in, just a dark green blur against the washed-out blue mid-eastern sky. A frozen moment in time. A rocket. The rocket arched in, just missing the roof of the chow hall. I watched it come in and explode in the hallway, created by the inverted T's of the walls that were there to protect us from just that kind of an explosion. Not a great fiery ball like you see in the movies, but a black ball of smoke and overpressure waves that caused little ripples of dust on the ground. Soldiers began running away, screaming in terror and fear. I picked myself up off the ground. Spitting dust from my mouth, I thought somebody should see if anyone was hurt or needed treatment. I coughed several times running through the zigzag barriers, nearly gagging on the stench of cordite. Already men were yelling, fighting like cattle to get away. I pushed them aside and stepped over the still smoking rocket body, dark green, wispy tendrils of blue-gray smoke drifting up from it. The body was dented and bent, unpainted metal showing where the paint was blown or scraped off. In the short span of time, there was already 3 men working on the wounded soldiers. Others, just escaping the chow hall, jumped over the wounded man. I took 3 or 4 steps into the tea hallway before coming to a halt. The soldier was on his back, one leg gone above the knee, the other below. He was gutted from crotch to chest, his insides spilling out over his brown T-shirt. Pink and red hard points of light shining back at me from the wet spots. It looked like his stomach and chest had a giant ice cream scoop taken out of them. They were just gone. There was 4 or 5 inch gash on the left side of his head, where the man's brains were leaking out and pooled on the concrete flagstone. His eyes were open, and the man's right hand, bent at the elbow, reached up towards the sky, reaching for help. A hand. I froze. Snapshots like a slideshow. His legs missing, blown open torso, the hand reaching, and his eyes open. The eyes. I looked him in the eyes, and he looked at me. He knew I was there. Like in a movie, a first aid bag appeared at my feet. I picked it up, but couldn't get my fingers to open the straps, so I pulled my knife and cut the fucking thing open. Out exploded everything I would need: chest bandages, field dressings, IV bags, and starter kits. It was all there. At this point, 13 years of knowledge, of training on how to save a life, being prepared for this moment, failed me. A million hermit crabs might as well have come out of the bag on the ground, and I could do nothing. I had fallen away. I was gone. I looked into the man's eyes. He fucking knew I was there. Don't let him die alone, I thought. Go over and hold his hand. Tell him that it would be all right, that his pain is over. Don't let him die unloved. I was locked on this man's eyes. I could see his chest rising and falling. He was still alive somehow, but his body was too stupid to know the brain was gone. I don't know how long I stood there. Hours, minutes, days, years. Sometimes I feel like I'm still standing there watching him watch me. Instead, I turned away. I walked away from that poor man. I let him, the guy we would later call Rocketman, die all alone and by himself. After him, he looked at me in the eye and silently pleaded for comfort and love. Instead, I dropped the bag and returned to my room, where I sobbed like a child. If I could go back for 30 seconds and act like a goddamn man, I would hold his hand and tell him it was going to be okay, that he would not die alone. Instead, I walked away.